These bands should have been more popular. Next on another edition of Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host, Ian C. I'm glad you could be joining me for this episode. Today, back on the program, we have Pat McCormack. We're going to be talking about some bands that, in our opinion, should have been more popular. These were bands that were a little bit obscure, a little bit underground, maybe not necessarily trying to be underground, but they were underground. And we are going to be talking about why we like them and why we think they should have been more popular. Also, before we get to the program, please like this, subscribe, all that stuff, share it on your favorite social media. It helps the algorithm with YouTube if you subscribe, if you like, to promote this out there. If you like what we're doing here, please go ahead and promote this by liking and subscribing and sharing it on your favorite social media. Another extra step is if you really like what we're doing here, you can push that bell notification that lets you know when these episodes are available. And also, oh yeah, you can give money. You can donate to what we're doing here. All you have to do is click the link below to the Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate some of that hard-earned cash. All right, with that, let's go to the interview. Computer. Hey everyone, I am on a Vimo, not a Vimo call. I said Vimo. What am I on here? Here, Pat, give me a hand.
You gonna pay me something?
I don't even.
No, that's Venmo. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't even know how to introduce my own show. Thank God for editing. Pat McCormack, Retro TV. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Retro TV trivia. Actually, the golden rage of TV.
Yes.
All these different monikers, but I'm not Retro TV because they are an entity that I'm not. So
okay. All right. I got you. Golden rage of TV.
That's it, buddy.
That's it. Well, I'm going to have you back on the show for a second time. I had an idea for a show, and I thought the last time I was going to talk with you, I thought, okay, we'll probably talk a little bit about music, and then we'll talk a lot about TV. And we ended up talking a lot about music and a lot about TV. And I just realized how connected you are to the music industry. And I had an idea for a show, and I thought you'd be the perfect guest to talk about this with, because, I'd name a band and you would know who they are. I would talk about somebody, you'd be like, oh, I know that band. And I'm sure that there are occasions where you might get stumped, as, anybody possibly could. But I thought, boy, there was a lot of bands that came out, a lot of rock bands, especially in the 80s, a little bit in the 90s, that I think should have been more popular. And not that they weren't bad, they actually were good, but for some reason the tides just didn't turn their way or anything, and they were just as good as some other bands that came out about that time. Some of them might be considered rock, some of them might be considered heavy metal, some of them might be considered just maybe power pop, I don't know. But
that's really the key subject, because I think a lot of the hey, who made it in rock made it. It was more like, what was the audience? Who made it in metal? Well, they made it because the metal has its own audience, whereas power pop, that's the genre that what you mentioned to me that really, what, I have some stuff to say about that for sure.
Okay, all right. Well, one of the bands that is actually listed as a power pop group when I actually Googled them was a band that I feel is a little bit power pop for sure, but on the alternative side. But I'll bring it right up and we can talk about them, and you can talk as much about power pop as you want to talk about. But it was Dramarama. One of those kind of, it's not that they weren't unpopular. There were a lot of people who really liked them, but they just never made it to, say, the level of a Radiohead or something like that, or a Motley Crue or something like that. I wasn't a fan when they first came out. I didn't find out about them till later. But when I found out about them, like, where have these guys been, man? They're one of my one of my favorite bands.
Right, right. And the aspect goes under the one hit wonder kind of a thing too, where they had a hit, why don't they have another one?
Hmm.
And that concept was pretty heavy because sophomore efforts were quite often not nearly as good as the original effort that got
Yeah.
them noticed. And that was always the hardest thing for a lot of these bands. When you listen to their interviews and such, it's like, yes, we made it. We were on the radio. We were on MTV, which was a big aspect. And you could think about how many bands that were on MTV that had regular play that today you're like, where are they now? Because even with that, it was like, all right, and
Right.
I feel for those guys because, they must have really had stars in their eyes and just went, we've done it. We've done it. We've done it. Wait, what happened? What happened to we've done it?
Hmm.
Oh, we just lost our record deal. Oh, and that's that. So,
Yeah.
there's so many. And even like I was saying, there's so many that got on MTV, which of course, we're talking about that era that, just for whatever reason didn't explode. And yeah, I mean, the power pop was for me, I loved it. Granted, I'm a total metalhead for the record.
Hmm.
But I thought personally, when you brought this subject up to me, I went, you know what? That's a great idea. Because really the power pop bands to me were the most talented.
Hmm.
And again, some of them got big airplay, some of them made major hits, but they're also in some ways not as known for what they were great at other than say that one song. And the first group that comes to my mind is the Knack.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're reaching back, but yeah, of course, power pop, man, the Knack for sure. Yeah,
Well,
they were great.
my Sharona rocked. That
Yeah.
guitar solo at the end of that song to this day is badass. And I was like, whoa, I like this song, even though it's getting played to death.
Hmm.
Bought the album.
Yeah. What year was that? Did that came out?
I'm going to say 1980.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to say 80, 81 maybe.
Yeah.
Um, I caught them in a nightclub right when they broke, and it was so magical because they were 5 feet away from me
Oh
doing
wow.
that whole album. And folks, if you only know them from My Sharona, get the Knack, and that's the title of the album, because every single song on there is great.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that was it. We made it.
Yeah. But and again, it's one of those situations where the band went up, but they didn't stay at the top or get the fame as say a Cheap Trick did, which Cheap Trick should have been up there. I mean, I love Cheap Trick. I mean, they're a awesome band, but there were bands that were just as good, but for some reason, just you mentioned 19. I wondered when that was because I wasn't, too into music at that time, other than what my mom played on the radio. But I do know that that was a very trying time for bands because MTV could make you or break you. You know what I mean? And there was so much competition going on to be on MTV that even if you were a good band and even if you had a good song, there were other bands who had good songs too, and they were cranking them out.
Right. Yeah. No, what was this? The one was in heavy rotation. Dexter's Midnight Flyers, I think, was it? Come on, Irene.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Just one of the best songs ever.
yeah.
What did they do after that? Where did they go?
I don't know. I don't know. There were lots of bands that especially when that if you get I don't know where they were from, but I think they were part of that British new wave
Right.
music, and that was one of those flash in the pan genres as well.
Right.
Unfortunately, where you had like a big wave of new British synth. Well, a lot of synth pop was going on then too, but yeah, good stuff. So What are name for me, and it doesn't have to stay with power pop. We can stay there if you want. But tell me, what do you think of some bands that you thought were absolutely fantastic? And they may have had a following to some degree, but they just didn't get to the level of, say, a Cure or a Motley Crue or, a Radiohead or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of tough to harken back. I know, oh, there was, ironically, I worked in a record store, in the 80s, 90s. So I was able to really get my hand on the pulse of what was happening. And there were a lot of bands that I was like, I would put their record on. It was kind of like that's what you would do in the record store. You'd
Right.
promote the records by playing the records. And I would just play stuff to death.
Uh-huh.
Now, when it comes to trying to remember what it was I played to, well, as far as in the rock genre, I would have to say Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. Um,
Is that one band?
yes,
Or okay, I've never even heard of that. I'll have to look that up.
it's almost one man, Frank Marino specifically. They started out as Mahogany Rush, and this was, I'm going to go late 70s on this, but hands down, one of the greatest rock guitar players that has ever lived. Oh, and he could sing his brains out. Oh, and there's a live album that is just a classic, Mahogany Rush Live. And, I saw them in a stadium, and this guy commanded that audience so much so that I remember he ended the show with a strobe light where he was just making his guitar. He had the full synth guitar. It was just the most outrageous sounds. And at the end, he put it down, and you didn't know he'd put it down. And then the lights come back, and he's walking towards the back of the stage, and there's a sea of people on stage, and it parts like the Red Sea as he walks to the back. And I just went, that is hands down the coolest thing I've ever seen. But I had the pleasure of seeing him play multiple times. And
Yeah.
this comes from having older siblings
Okay.
that liked that style of music, that were a big part of why I became a musician. They said, "Come on, we're going to Winterland. You're going to see this band, Humble Pie. Come on, you're going to see this band, Led Zeppelin." I'm like, "What? I got to see Led Zeppelin? Wow."
Wow.
Yes, it was Led Zeppelin at the Oakland Arena with Rick Derringer and
Okay.
Judas Priest as the
Oh,
opening
wow.
act.
Judas Priest. Back when they were opening, not when they were headlining, back when they were opening.
It was their first American tour, and nobody knew what the hell to make of them, because it was just not nobody was ready for metal in
Yeah.
1977.
That's really, Judas Priest is one of the I would say defining heavy metal bands, when you think of metal. You kind of get you kind of get before that, and it's hard to tell, it's just like, is that a metal band? Is that not a metal band? And then you ask some bands and they say, oh yeah, we were metal. And then you ask some other bands that you think are metal, like for example, Led Zeppelin, they don't like the term metal. They say, we don't even consider us heavy metal. We're just a rock band, so
They were actually a blues band, really.
yeah.
That was their forte. And they just kind of bent the rules a little bit here, and got, they just went off the track of blues. And of course, blues is the birth of all rock and roll.
Yeah, for sure.
Rock and roll came from American blues. And so it's kind of neat the way it got adapted by the English and then transformed into these groups like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and, the Yardbirds and all these just, iconic bands. And they're like, all we're playing is Delta blues, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing your music.
Right. So let me move you forward on the timeline. I'm going to throw out some bands because for me, when I listen, so like for example, you brought up the Knack. I don't know Knack in its history. Like I only know Knack because I've heard it after the fact. You know what I mean? So when you say the Knack was one of those bands that didn't get as big as Cheap Trick, like I don't even know that. You know, it's like I alls I know is that they had this fantastic song, and it's like for me the history is a little bit lost if you understand what I'm saying because I didn't grow up during that era. Well, I did, but I was super young. I mean, grew up during it, but I was super young. But you move forward on the timeline a little bit, you get down to the mid 80s and late 80s. I got a handful of bands that I was just listening to because I was a metalhead too, back, especially in the 80s. I had long blonde hair. I wanted to be Vince Neil. Motley Crue was my favorite band. I loved I considered the LA metal trio being Motley Crue, Rat, and Dokken. I know there were other ones, but that was like the big ones for me. And then in addition to that, I also really liked Iron Maiden, and I really liked Judas Priest. But there were a couple bands that were being played at the time, and this is kind of hair metal era as well. I know people don't like that term, but oh well, suck it up. But there were a few bands that kind of came out that I thought were really good. And I was just like, how come these guys aren't getting any more airplay? I'm gonna run them by you, and you tell me what you think, and because you worked in a record store. Okay, so number one is Bang Tango. Do you remember Bang Tango?
Yes, I remember the name. I couldn't hum a single tune.
Someone like you, someone just like you.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Again, there were so many. I mean, there was so many. And again, for a second I thought you were going to throw some metal bands at me, Ian. But
is that not a metal? Is that not a metal band?
Well, it goes to show you how much I know who they are. No.
Okay.
Yes.
I would say that they're metal. I would look them up because I would say they are one of those bands that kind of push the edges of metal.
It's coming back. It's coming back. I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Still couldn't sing a single song. Yeah, they were hard rock. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh well, that was a band that I was like, how come they're not more popular? They had a few albums out, and I picked up I picked up two of them. But I was like, they're really good. The guy was a great singer. They were kind of unique. They were a little more heavy on bass than a lot of other metal bands, kind of more heavy guitar kind of driven. And not that they weren't guitar driven, but they had a lot of heavy bass. Speaking of another band, you got to know this one, DAD.
Sure.
DAD. Dad. DAD.
No, trust me, I can spell, Ian. I can spell. Dad?
Yeah, DAD. Oh,
where are you, Dad? You're certainly not in my mind. Mom? Are you there? My parents are gone.
Oh no, I'm sorry, but I'm talking about the band.
Dad, Ian, you're pulling them out of a hat. I had never heard of that.
You've never heard of that? Okay, all right. Sleep in the day away.
Yes, of course. That's
my
motto.
They had a song called "Sleep in the Day Away." I don't know if you remember that song or not. No. Okay. All right. So
I'm not going to make you sing, Ian. Don't worry. Maybe. Here he goes.
I know some obscure music. You know some obscure music too, though. I mean, that's why I had you on the show, because I was just like, I was naming bands and you knew who they were, but now I'm naming them and you don't know who they are.
Just like one of those Dave Sundstrom's tests where I'm supposed to know the answers to this stuff. Yeah, you just keep throwing them curveballs at me.
Well, it was a band that was a little bit, I don't know, sleaze metal kind of. I don't know. Well, here one band that I know we and I both enjoyed, that I really think that was a little bit ahead of its time, was Steve Stevens' band, Atomic Playboys. I thought that they had one album, as far as I know, Atomic Playboys, and I thought I played that over and over again, and I don't know why it didn't get the recognition that it deserved.
Well, again, what a business. I would not recommend it for the faint at heart because I did it for 40 years, and I can tell you it's cutthroat. And when you're mentioning it now, suddenly a band of that era pops into my head, and I'm gonna bat one back at you.
Okay.
Crocus.
What?
Crocus.
Oh yeah, Crocus for sure. Yeah, I know Crocus.
Screaming in the Night.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear that come on the radio today, and it's been out for what, 35 years, and that radio goes up
Uh-huh.
because it's such a good song.
Yeah.
Song.
Yeah, yeah.
Good song. It's a good song. And then they started doing like covers. I think they did Sweet covers that, first of all, don't try to do Sweet covers. Only Sweet can do Sweet. You know who Sweet is, right?
Look, so I know the name, but I couldn't name you a single song. Sorry.
Don't make me stay out there.
You're going to be close. You're only going to be like I don't know where you're going, right, but you're going to be close.
I'm going to get you educated, or I'm going to drive out there. Sweet were the fathers of metal.
Oh, really?
And
I mean, I know the name, but
Ballroom Blitz.
Oh yeah, of course.
Fox on the Run was they had a hit with Fox on the Run, but it's their album that was like so far ahead of its time. Since you mentioned that,
right?
That brought Sweet to mind. Yes, they should have been bigger. They're certainly respected. There isn't.
Ballroom Blitz is a classic, so
like Nikki Sixx is Sweet. That's it. That's it. Yeah. They were it. Yeah. They had the full look. They took on that. They started that hair metal look, and this was mid 70s. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know what to make of these guys, but I sure love these songs. And boy, could they sing. What was the big epic tune? Love Is Like Oxygen.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that one at all.
Oh,
at least by name. I may have heard it, but at least by name.
It's like metal's Stairway to Heaven. It's just an epic 5-minute long piece of music that even would put Queen to task. It's that good. Just an incredible piece of music. So yeah, they are definitely, I'm glad we're talking about it because it's bringing all these back to my memory. And I'm just like, God, yes, I loved those guys.
So. Well, it's kind of interesting to think about, like, so we mentioned Atomic Playboys, and one of the things is I don't know exactly what makes a band not take off the way it did. I mean, I have some ideas, but like for
I think they were typecast.
Atomic Playboys,
yeah,
are Sweet, yeah.
Atomic Playboys, because that was Vince Neil too, right?
No, that's Fired.
Well, of course. See, I'm an expert. I know these things.
That's Fired. No, Atomic Playboys, but no, he did play on Vince Neil's album. I think.
What I mean when I say typecast, it's when they get all stars together and create a group.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't necessarily always make it.
No.
I guess you could look at the damn Yankees and go, well, it worked for them, but really in a flaccid way.
In a flaccid way, yeah.
In their own rights, these are some of the best rock musicians that have ever lived in the damn Yankees. Mm-hmm. But I said, just do another vocal track on top of your 1,000 other ones that are there. It's like, come on, you're not Queen.
Yeah.
And that you look at them like Tommy Shaw, and you say, gosh, Styx should have been bigger. Well, I can't say they should have been bigger. They were huge, but man, was I a fan of those guys. One great song after another, great singing, great guitar riffs. Styx was it for me in the 80s for sure.
Yeah. Well, they were huge. They were kind of what kind of band would they be? They would be
a pop rock band.
Yeah.
That dabbled in hard rock, total schmaltzy cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? These guys could sing, so why not?
Yeah.
Sing.
And
sing. And and they could write. And it's like Blue Collar Man. To me, it's the best rock song ever written. I mean, Blue Collar Man is, you can't beat that. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
So it's the thing. It's almost like on the subject of what we're talking about. It's like great bands that you know only one song of. And what about the rest of their library? Did they have any good other songs? And there was a lot of great bands that had one great songs and everything else sucked.
Uh-huh.
You were almost like force fed it.
Yeah, yeah, but there were a lot of bands that had one great song, and I'm going through this right now with a lot of bands that I'm listening to, a lot of newer music. I'm like, wow, that's really good. And then I'll listen to the rest of it. I'm like, it's just not so good. But there are a lot of bands who have one great song and then a lot of great songs, but in 10 years, people only know the one song. It really kind of gets, I mean, I will, uh, um, for example, Motley Crue had a lot of great songs, but in but if I ask somebody today, name a Motley Crue song or name three songs, the only one that they could name is Home Sweet Home. And that's a
Yeah,
phenomenal songs, but that's not a description of who they were. That
live one,
was, yeah, live.
live.
Yeah,
Your feel good.
yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
these are classics, you know.
Yeah,
So they really were consistent. If anything, they
yeah.
were consistent. So
Yeah, they took a little dive for me, and with girls, 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 I wasn't a crazy fan with that, but I thought they brought it back with Dr. Feelgood. But after Dr. Feelgood, I actually stopped listening to them pretty much. That's about when the alternative scene took over, and I was full on board with what was going on there.
you were probably very smart because you know, if you know their backstory, it was getting really sordid around that time. I mean,
Yeah,
Nikki Sixx, he was alive. I mean, let's
yeah,
face it, lucky he's alive.
yeah.
So
All right.
kickstart my heart.
Yeah. I'm going to try to stump you some more with some more bands here, and you tell me whether or not what these again. The idea is that there's these bands that I thought were, just as good as anybody else, if not like phenomenal, and not just one hit wonder. But why weren't they popular? Now this might be a band you might actually not like. I actually really like them, especially in 1987. I think it was when their second or third album came out, and it was their self-entitled album. And got to remember, at the time, my top favorite bands were Rat, Dokken, Motley Crue. So you understand my headspace. But um, Kill,
Oh
Kill.
yeah, Ron Keel. Yeah,
Yeah, Ron Keel.
he,
That their self-entitled album, Keel, which was I think their third album. It might have been their third album, but that to me was just as good as Rat, or just
oh
as
yeah,
good as a Dokken album. You know what I mean? I would listen to that. I'd be like all the way through, and people just weren't listening to it. I was just like, why are people not listening to this? This is just as good as those other bands.
bad management. That's all I can figure. You know, and that's a key factor. And I will say about this about Keel, I caught them, and they could do it live.
Oh,
They
okay.
were a great live band. Rat live, it's like, wait, you guys don't sound anything like the album. I mean,
Oh,
if you
really?
do, a good portion of it really doesn't. And of course, by contrast, the Scorpions came on after, and they sound exactly like their albums. You know, it's like, oh man, I like Rat. I love. As a matter of fact, take that back. I love Rat's recorded music. Seeing them live, it was a little disappointing. Ron
Uh,
Keel was just like, wow, this guy's a star, you know. But
Yeah.
like, they not and never made it past mediocre stardom or mediocre, whatever you want to call it, the B league of rock stardom. You know, he was on the cover of Kerrang. He was in all the rock cream magazines, and you know he was in it, and so he got a lot of press. I say he. Let's face it, the band was named after him. You know, I don't know if he wrote all the songs. That's
I don't know
generally
either.
what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
it's a good
yeah,
one.
but you don't, and you don't know if it's like that. I mean, Yeah, Dawkins named after Don Dawkins, but Don Dawkins not Don Dawkins without George Lynch. I mean, and,
Sure.
in my opinion, but there are, I don't know if you've seen that this is really funny. It's Saturday Night Live with Bon Jovi. Did you see that? Where
No,
they okay, you have to look it up, but basically it shows like four metal people off to the side, and they're all sitting here like, okay, we're going to decide on a name, so we're all decided, Dead Warning or something, some metal name, and they're like, yeah, 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 and then it pans over to Bon Jovi, and he's like, how about we call it Bon Jovi? And they're like, no, we want to call it this. It's like, yeah, but I think we should call the band Bon Jovi. It's like, yeah, but when we say metal, whatever, we think of the whole band. When you say Bon Jovi, we just think of you. And he's like, yeah, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Good for the members, for the other members to put down their egos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I will say this: my highest success as a musician has always been under somebody's name.
Okay.
Ronnie Montrose.
Mm-hmm.
Was a big thing for me. Kurth and Taylor, which was the Soap Star band that I was in. That's a name. Names. People identify much easier with the name of a person than some conceptual name of a band.
Mm. Yeah.
That's smart. So then, when I put my instrumental trio together, it was like, okay, who's writing all the music? Oh, I am. Let's see, what shall we call it? How about the Pat McCormack group? Huh? That sound good?
Yeah.
And they were all like, well, I thought, you know what? That's a great name.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to identify with one person and know exactly who this is when they're playing.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing some, crazy name going, oh, I know who those guys are.
Right.
Those guys. It's a recognizable thing. It's so smart play in
Yeah.
that way. If you can convince the other band members that that's what you mean.
Hey, it can work. It's worked. It worked for Bon Jovi. It worked for Dawkins.
What are you talking about?
Okay, so listen, this is when you're watching Headbangers Ball. You remember Headbangers Ball, but you're up into the third hour. You're staying awake all night and you're looking at the third hour, and they're playing all these bands. That's the time I actually heard of Crocus, by the way, was on the third hour, because the first hour was Motley Crue, Poison, Cinderella, all those bands. Second hour, second tier, and then third hour was all the bands that were obscure, that I was like, how come these guys aren't getting more airplay? So I'm gonna throw some third hour Headbanger Ball. Oh, by the way, Ron Keel, I forgot to mention, he went on to do country music.
Isn't that, see, there's a path for somebody somewhere all the time.
Yeah, he was real happy doing it. I don't begrudge him. It's just like, go ahead. I mean, if you're happy and you're going to be successful, and because people, and the reason why is I'm not a huge country fan. I'm not a country fan. I don't like it. It's not my favorite kind of music. With a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, but you can find an exception to anything. I mean, if you put me in a room and you made me listen to opera long enough, I would find an opera song I like.
Sure.
But we're third hour Headbangers Ball. I'm going to throw some names your way, and you're going to tell me whether or not you know them and what you thought of them. Sleaze Bees.
Of course, yeah, that's like Sleaze Bees.
Yes.
They were originally called Horny Hornets, weren't they? No? Wait, it was Wily Wasp. That's a good one.
Well, we could talk about Wasp. That was a band.
Yeah, I would love to talk. You ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
We're to Sleaze Bees. I'm sorry. You're gonna keep throwing more of these at me.
Well,
I'm ready to forfeit this. I'm going to throw the towel in right now.
Well, you can throw some back at me too. Throw some back at me. I'm all interested in obscure music.
we just talked about Wasp. How great is that? Now, Blackie Lawless, what a great singer.
Yeah.
What a great showman. Face it, it's a little on the dark side, but of course for him, you could tell it was all show.
Oh
It
yeah.
was definitely all show. Now, some of these black metal bands, which became popular in that era, they take it too far. They come on. I know I know you practice the good religion, and I'm really, I'm all down with that. But again, I don't really think that rock and religion fit at all. Stryper, great band, but at the same time, why does that have to be there? Unless, of course, you're part of a community, which, of course, I think Stryper, they were part of that, the Christian support, raise money, philanthropic kind of fight the good cause. There's really nothing good that black metal could do. Nothing good, but go, oh yeah, that's really scary. But with Wasp, it was certainly more theatrical. And it got a little over the top. No, actually, it got a lot over the top. But they got that from the Tubes. The Tubes, White Punks on Dope. Another great example. Band that should have been bigger.
There we go.
One hit. They got one number one hit, but their catalog is phenomenal music. Phenomenal. And oh my God, live show. So, they influenced Twisted Sister.
Okay.
And Dee Snider is just like, I got everything, my look, my vibe, my everything from Fee Waybill of the Tubes.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I don't know too much about the Tubes, quite honestly. I mean, I've heard the name, but I couldn't, probably if you told me a song, just like, you told me with Sweet, but I knew the song when you told me, but the Tubes, I've heard of the band, but I don't know a single song.
Yeah. Oh, well, they're all good.
I'll have to look them up afterwards.
And of course, White Punks on Dope was their big cult type hit, but there was What Do You Want from Life? And then they sold out, got signed and sold out, and did a song called She's a Beauty. One in a million girls, like number one.
So was that the ballad, I want to see a hit, better make a ballad, and we don't care if it's very much horrible.
That, but it wasn't. It was upbeat. You could dance to it.
Okay.
So there was the difference. Not slow dance, but I mean, you could dance. It was an upbeat hit.
Yeah.
But it wrecked them.
It was like a poppy kind of song. Like, we want a pop song, because you could go either way. You get a heavy metal band and like, we want the pop song and we want the ballad. Okay. So you better get the ballad on there and you better get the pop song, the radio friendly pop song on there.
You can't tie up a woman and whip her with this one on stage. And that's what people would do. I mean, they'd take it that far.
Yeah.
They'd throw raw meat out into the audience.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was USDA.
Hopefully it was grass fed.
Open range. I don't think they had it back then. It's just like straight off the slaughterhouse. Here you go.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it was even better when they got it thrown back at them.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned Christian rock there, and just a little rant for me. I don't like Christian rock. I really don't. I'm sorry. I wasn't a huge. I didn't hate Stryper, but I wasn't a huge fan. Even at the time, the Yellow and Black. It just wasn't my thing. Everybody extols Michael Sweet's voice. And I'm sorry, look, I mean, if Michael Sweet's, I don't think he'd ever going to be listening to this, but if he's ever listening to this, for me, it was too clean to be heavy metal. It was too perfect. Everybody said, oh, he's got such a good voice. I'm like, ugh, no. I did know some rock bands of them that I did like. There's one band called Holy Soldier that was really good. They were actually, they had good music. Right. You know what I mean? And I think that's what you have to do first. And it's hard to do that with the whole Christian attitude, because the Christian attitude is like, okay, I'm going to put Christ first. And it's like, okay, look, I get it. I understand. Look, I'm a Christian. I get that. But you have to make music. Okay. Like if I'm a plumber and I'm a Christian plumber, I've got to make the plumbing the thing that I'm doing. If somebody wants to talk about Christ afterwards, that's great. I'm not going to go and kick the toilet in and say praise Jesus, but at the same time, and bands that were Christian bands that actually were good were like, we're music oriented. They were pushing the music. Holy Soldier is one of them. There's another band out there, another guy out there who, go ahead.
Well, they would be subtle in the message too.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. No, I don't look, I don't mind if they're overt. I mean, I love poetry. I love music. It's just like, okay, it's, I don't know. I don't know exactly how I'm describing it.
I have the same problem with black metal. I don't want to hear about Satan.
Yeah.
What the heck? Let's just,
shock rock kind of stuff. It's just like, play the music. Don't, yeah.
It sells. Why don't you let us do this? Of course it sells, because there's a lot of dumb kids out there that get off on that. My kids love really hard rock, but when it gets into that dark thing, they don't listen to the lyrics. And
yeah.
Like, don't you love this? You're a metalhead. And I said, yeah, I just don't like religious hard rock.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
Religious. This is about the, and I went, all comes from the same.
It's, you know what, and this is kind of the same thing. Like, it's, people can be religious with other things. There are bands out there that are just like they're all about the environment. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, listen, I get it. I understand. I'm not going to throw trash on the ground. Okay. I'm going to recycle, but I'm not here to hear that. I am here. It's like they can be religious with anything. And like with what you're saying with the death metal thing, it's just like, yeah, you can be just as religious with the shock. Like, that's what we want to do. It's like, listen, just play the music. I want to hear the music. You want to shock me? Let that be an afterthought. I want to hear the music. It's yeah.
Well, and it isn't so much shock factor, and even death metal. Death metal is not by classification a religious theme. It's black metal is the term that you're looking for, where that's all about the dark one. And it's very, very popular in the Nordic countries.
Yes, right, yeah.
It's huge, as a matter of fact. And of course, right, it's popular. People like to be scared, but it's like, why do you have to talk about this just complete opposite of what you need to be or should be to be happy?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to find happiness. You're not going to find happiness with these lyrics.
No.
They're not going to take you there. Now, if it appeases some kind of anger inside of you and calms it down, job well done, black metal band. Whatever. I don't want it. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the girls. It's all about the girls. Okay. Period.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I think that's what makes heavy metal is that they're putting the girl. It's all about the girls, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, Wasp was a big time, one of my favorite bands back then. They did get a little dark, even for me back then. But some of their songs, "School Days," I thought was great. And then, Blackie Lawless went from playing bass to playing lead or guitar again on Electric Circus. I thought that was cool. I was around for that. I was all on board for that. He insulted Nikki Sixx a little bit there. I don't know if you knew that or not, where I guess he called the bass the tool of the ignorant or something like that. And that's why he switched. And they asked Nikki Sixx what he thought. And he was just like, well, and Nikki Sixx was very gracious. He actually said Blackie Lawless is one of those guys that's just a little too smart for me. So, I think maybe it was a backhanded comment, but he.
That is true. Blackie Lawless is renowned for being one of the most educated rock musicians ever.
Mm.
I mean, this man is scary smart.
Mm.
I have friends that have worked with him.
Yeah. A genius.
Wasp, you think of Wasp as this scary, witchy kind of guy that those lights come off. He's like, okay, we're down to business. Where's our next tour? Where's our next date? Okay, you take care of that. You take just business, businessman. No partying, no drinking, no nothing. We're on this just to rock. That's why. When I heard that, he really impressed me. Really, really did as a human being. Because
do you think that that he's just like a good actor then, or do you think they're, I mean, and a lot of good actors, of course they put some of themselves in the character, but in the music,
Absolutely.
we kind of like to think, well, he is what he sings about, kind of a thing. Is that true with Blackie, or is it a little bit, he's more of a little bit of an actor?
He's a total actor.
Mm.
And again, that's Alice Cooper. That's that thing where it's like, ooh, scary on stage. But then there's those bands like, I can't think of by band like Venom. Who's the huge one?
King Diamond.
Well, yeah, that's now, King Diamond is a really interesting situation because he had an immense amount of talent. Not only that, his band was probably one of the greatest rock drummers that ever lived, Mickey D.
Mm.
Just phenomenal. But it's like you're looking at the lyrics going, this dude's serious.
Yeah.
Slayer is who I'm thinking. They're serious.
Yeah.
They're not faking it. It's like, go have your fun, boys.
They weren't bands.
Yeah,
they weren't bands that I liked. I mean, I like a band because I like a band first, and then it's like, okay, I understand their lyrical content is something else. So like Wasp, even though I would disagree with some of their lyrical content, I like the band. I like their music.
sure.
But
Right.
when Slayer was not in my wheelhouse, neither was King Diamond, wasn't really in my wheelhouse either.
Yeah.
For me, it's just for my taste in music, it was a little too, I don't know, aggressive for me.
And just imagine the people it drew. It's like, oh, I gotta go to one of those concerts.
No.
I'll be on stage, but keep me away from that audience, man. No thanks.
Hey,
I hope
okay.
Anybody.
No, well, we're going to try to offend some people here.
Okay.
So no, I'm kidding. Oh, but listen, so I know this might sound kind of like a stupid question, and this is just more a little bit off the record, but so how much is music? Do you like listen to a lot of music all the time yourself? Or I know it's got, as you get older, when you might even flow, but like when you're in the car and you're driving somewhere, do you listen to music? Are you
Absolutely.
okay?
Drive time, absolutely.
I'll
Around
send.
the house, I would like to. I often think, God, if only I had a soundtrack going in my house all the time. Well, I'm about to buy a new house, and I think that's going to be a prerequisite because it just puts you in a better mood. It really, really does. And yeah, I do, but I don't like I used to because my ears aren't so healthy these days, and it's one of those things where I wish I had more. I'm in one place and I can listen to music. But when I'm in one place, I'm usually concentrating on writing scripts for retro TV trivia. Right. Otherwise, I'm all over the place.
Well, I want to send you some links to some bands and have you listen to them. But I want to get back a little bit on track here with the obscure bands that should have been bigger, or maybe at least in my opinion should have been bigger, maybe not.
One quick second. My cat just knocked over my green screen.
Yes.
Yes, he's a brat. He somehow needs attention.
Oh no.
Stay away. Down, Fido. Bad kitty.
Fido.
I'm talking to you. We've got a new name every day. Who else? So now, who else you got?
So we're third hour into Headbangers Ball, and this band comes on, and they are called Junkyard. Do you remember Junkyard at all?
Absolutely not.
I don't. You know what? I could barely even think of them myself.
You are destroying me. Yeah, Junkyard. Yeah, I was a fan of the dog. I know that.
I think they were like a late 80s. I mean, we're talking 89, and the album wasn't so bad, but it was certainly dated. It was certainly a a cherry pie kind of a thing. That really.
You talking about Warrant?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, they were great.
You're kidding.
I'm
Okay.
no.
All right.
First of all, that's one of the greatest rock songs ever written,
Uh-huh.
hands down. The greatest rock guitar riff, one of the best vocal performances. You know, it's funny. I thought of you the other day as I was driving and I had hair metal on the Sirius. There's a hair metal channel.
Yeah.
And here comes the ballad. And I went, oh, I'm thinking of Ian and his ballads. And it was that song, I Saw Red.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Of course. Of
I,
course.
I never listened to this song. I'm about to, wow, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Now, let's face it, Janie Lane had just tons of talent. Such a shame what that poor man did to himself, you know.
I know.
It's a story we hear every day, but he was a genuinely talented man. And boy, what a singing voice. There was no auto-tune then.
No.
No, they were dead on, full on great singers, you know. And again, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, no, it's okay. It's going to be one of those agree to disagree. I always feel bad because I don't want to speak ill of the dead. And I am in a place right now where I try to be as positive as I can be about everything. There was a time when I was younger, especially when you went from listening to hair metal to listening to alternative, where, you know, everything that came before sucked unless it was punk rock.
Yeah.
But you know, as now that I'm older, I can appreciate things a little bit more without being caught in that tribe mentality. But I never liked it even when it came out. I didn't. Down Boys, I didn't care for that song. I didn't care for Cherry Pie. I didn't care for any.
You're wrong there, Dan. I'm sorry, but the point is, you're right. You look Cherry Pie. Listen to it again, but you come in at a later date and go, oh, I never listened to it with these ears.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And your perspective can give you a whole new appreciation or something that, you know, maybe you are like, this is what's good.
Uh-huh.
That's not good. Maybe that's pretty good. Blinders, you know. And I guess, you know, I was the same way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I don't mind listening to stuff again. It's the you know, and even if I might find an appreciation for it, I certainly don't find a home there. And it's kind of interesting because I talked to you and I talked to a lot of people about metal because ideas for my show about metal kind of come up. But I don't know if you heard the interview that I did with Steve Sundstrom. I don't know if you heard that interview or not.
I know who he is.
Yeah, he's Dave Sundstrom's brother. But that's more, we talked a lot about music in that, and that's kind of more my wheelhouse of, like, when I'm out and about and I'm turning on the radio and I'm listening to stuff, it is more, I am gravitated toward more of the alternative rock kind of stuff with now a good appreciation for heavy metal, which I didn't have for a long time. You know, but I grew up loving heavy metal. I grew up, and I talk about this too. I talk about this polarization that I had with, you know, like, I grew up listening to heavy metal and then alternative hit, and I found a home there, and I did this 180. No, all these bands suck. This is the way it is. This is the cool stuff. But now that I'm older, I'm like, I can appreciate, even if I don't love it as much as I did when I was younger, I can still appreciate it for what it is. I can appreciate it way more for what it is. But my wheelhouse really is, and I think that people would be a little, because I talk about heavy metal so much, and I did the top 5 ballads and the top 5 Motley Crue albums and all that stuff. But my wheelhouse really is Nirvana. It really is Alice in Chains and huh?
Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, Stone Temple Pilots to some degree. The Pixies, love the Pixies, that kind of stuff, that poppy punk, Jesus and Mary Chain, those kind of things.
Listen to Alanis Morissette and just go, man, she freaking rocks.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. All right, so Uh, more obscure, more obscure. I just had the name in my head and now it just kind of went out of my head. I can't
Cool.
think of.
Let me fire one at you,
Oh,
Ian.
okay, go
Let me
ahead.
fire power pop bands because I know other people are going to be watching this, and I really want to get these names out there because you can trust me.
Yes.
They're great. And I got you right now. A band called The Beat.
Um,
Now
not familiar.
they got on MTV finally as Paul Collins Beat with a horrific song, but their big power pop hit was "I Want to Be with a Rock and Roll Girl," and it was like, okay, we want to play that in my band. We listened to the whole album, incredible. And then another one along that genre is a band called The Producers. If you don't know who the Producers are, look them up. Should have been bigger.
Okay.
Should have been big. The Smithereens.
Yep.
You know, I like them a lot. Marshall Crenshaw. Oh man, just again, these names. Look them up, folks. If you want to hear some great power pop stuff.
Yeah, you're firing names at me now that I don't know. I don't know them at all.
The Beat Farmers. Bet you never heard of them, but they were very popular. And the Beat Farmers, yeah, incredible. Let's see who else. Who else along these lines? You know, even the Romantics. The Romantics, of course, had "What I Like About You." You know.
Oh yeah.
Which was their big hit. People think that's all they did.
You ever hear of Romeo Void?
Oh, sure. Of course.
Yeah, they were really good. I liked them a lot.
Yeah.
They were a kind of a power pop band, I think.
And you listen to any of these interviews with Nirvana or Dave Grohl or these guys that were the pioneers of grunge, and they all drew from these guys for the melody.
Oh yeah. Well, a big influence on Nirvana was the Knack.
Yeah.
We started from. I mean, you can totally hear the Knack, especially in Nevermind and especially in Incesticide. You can really hear a power pop flavor to their early stuff.
And the Beatles. You can hear the Beatles in them too.
Oh.
You know he was a big Lennon fan, of course.
Well, About a Girl could almost have been written. I mean, he basically was trying to imitate a Beatles song there. He did it great. He was phenomenal. But basically, I mean, that was I'm trying to be a Beatle, basically. Yeah.
Anything wrong with that?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. Well, I got another one for you. This is late 80s. This might even be 1990. Steel Heart.
Oh, yeah. I remember Steel Heart, of course.
I think
starting to get my head back in that era. Steelheart. Who else was it that was in that same bin at the record store that were Head East?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was phenomenal. Fastway.
Oh, I know Faster Pussycat. I remember them.
This is a little earlier. I'm going back.
Fastway.
The 80s, and again, these are some gems. Folks, if you're looking for some stuff to blow your mind that you've never heard before, look out for everything that Ian and I are talking about because we have taste.
Yeah, we do.
Good taste.
Right. All right. Before we close out the show here, I want you to tell people where they can find you and what you are doing.
Generally, behind the dumpster with some woman I'd never met in my entire life. Oh, wait a minute. Oh.
Which dumpster? Give us an address.
Would be like, Pat, sometimes that humor of yours just doesn't work. Obviously, she's not here right now. So.
Okay. Well, we won't let her listen to this then either.
I won't be funny, I promise. You can find me at Golden Rage of TV on YouTube and Facebook at Golden Rage of TV, and on Twitter, which I'm really trying to build my Twitter audience because it's starting to flow now. Of course, YouTube. We know how that is, how hard that is to get. But hey, like and subscribe me, please. But Twitter is something I'm really trying to hang my hat on right now. And this is at Golden Rage of TV 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I do those retro TV trivia videos, and I've gotten the recognition from some of the biggest classic TV stars ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just starting to get more and more, and it's like, God, that's payment enough for me.
Right.
Now, if only they could just help me make some money.
That's what we're trying to do here, for
Buy
sure.
me a coffee.
Yeah. Okay. And great stuff that you produce. I mean, quite honestly, some of the best good bite-sized stuff too. I mean, it's just like I think your goal is under 2 minutes. Is that your goal?
No, now I'm writing the 3rd season now, Ian, and they're going to be longer.
Okay.
Because I realize YouTube doesn't like my shortness.
Oh.
And the fact of the matter is, I can make them longer. And I tend to think that might be, the cure for my lack of subscribers. Because Mr. Dave Sundstrom, thank you, sir, gave me that recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes, I do see you. I do. Yes, I do. You're here. Okay.
All right. Hey, Kitty.
Yes. Hello.
Well, stick with me on the line here for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Hey, I just want everybody to know, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. It would be a big honor for me if you would subscribe to my channel. I'm dedicated to bringing the best in growing up Generation X and a little bit beyond, talking about all kind of things retro of yesteryear and even stuff today, just whatever kind of piques my interest. If you like what you heard here, you're going to like what we're doing on our YouTube page. If you're listening on podcast only, there are some things that I do on YouTube that just don't quite make it over to the podcast platform. So go on over there and subscribe. If you are listening to this on a podcast, please leave me an honest review. Leave me a comment. Leave me a star rating. It helps us a lot. Likes, comment, subscribe, share on your favorite social media. That helps us a lot. And if you want to go that one extra step and donate to my empire that I'm trying to build here so desperately, you can follow the link below to the Buy Me a Coffee page, where you can donate some of that hard-earned cash during this economic crisis that we're going through. It would mean a lot to me. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you again on another episode of Retro Serial. Retro Serial is the nostalgia that you can sink your teeth into. It creates a great crunch. See you, folks.